Solo Sikoa built Jacob Fatu into the most dangerous weapon his version of the Bloodline had ever possessed. He recruited him, positioned him, watched him walk through that curtain and dismantle everything in his path exactly the way Solo had envisioned when he first brought him into the fold. And then, after Raw went off the air this week, in a dark hallway away from every camera that was supposed to be watching, Solo Sikoa attacked his own creation, put him down, and reached down to take something that should never, under any circumstances, have been taken by force, the Ula Fala, the sacred Samoan necklace that represents chieftainship, lineage, and the absolute right to lead, ripped from Jacob Fatu's neck like it was nothing. Like the months of dominance, the respect Fatu had earned from a crowd that had genuinely started to believe in him, the entire chapter Solo himself had built, like none of it mattered the moment Solo decided he wanted total authority back. This was not a brawl. This was a declaration of war against the very man Solo created. And Wrestling Stands is breaking down exactly what this means heading into Night of Champions. Quick favor before we get into every layer of this, if you're enjoying the content here at Wrestling Stands, please smash that like button and hit subscribe. Over 98% of viewers watch without subscribing. It's completely free for you, but it means the absolute world to us and genuinely helps the channel grow. Already subscribed? You absolute legend, thank you so much. Right, let's get fully into it. Let's start with Jacob Fatu's journey, because understanding exactly what Solo built, and exactly what Solo just decided to destroy, requires appreciating how far this story has traveled. When Fatu first arrived in this chapter of the Bloodline, he was presented as precisely what Solo needed him to be, an unstoppable force, a monster, handpicked and positioned to enforce Solo's will with total, uncomplicated brutality, and Fatu delivered on every single promise. Physical, dominant, relentless, everything Solo could have asked for in an enforcer. But something happened along the way that Solo did not fully anticipate. The crowd started to feel something different when Fatu walked through that curtain. Respect, genuine connection, the kind of organic fan response that cannot be manufactured through booking alone. It has to be earned through performances that make people believe in someone as more than just a weapon being pointed at problems. Fans started cheering for him. Started seeing him as a potential next chapter of something real, something that might extend beyond simply being Solo's instrument. And that is precisely the moment everything inside this faction started to fracture. Because Solo Sikoa did not build Jacob Fatu to be loved. He built him to be feared on Solo's behalf. The distinction between those two things might seem subtle from the outside, but inside the psychology of a faction leader who has spent his entire career studying power dynamics, it is the difference between a tool and a threat. Let's talk about Solo's nature for a moment, because understanding why he reacted this way requires understanding exactly what kind of operator he is. Solo Sikoa is not simply a brawler who reacts to problems with violence and calls it strategy. He is a political animal, calculating and patient in a way that few people inside that locker room fully appreciate until they have already become a target of his planning. He watched Roman Reigns build the original Bloodline 4 years, watched every decision, every loyalty test, every betrayal that defined Roman's reign, and when his own time came, he replicated that exact playbook with brutal precision. What Solo built was, in its own way, a study of everything that made Roman's authority work. Total control, conditional loyalty, the careful management of a hierarchy where nobody beneath him was allowed to accumulate genuine independent standing. And for weeks, the tension between Solo and Fatu had been building beneath the surface in exactly the way that tension builds when a leader starts to recognize a threat he himself created. Every interaction carried a little more edge. Every segment where Fatu showed even a hint of independence registered on Solo's radar, because Solo has spent his entire career learning to read exactly those signals before they become genuine problems. What Solo perhaps did not fully account for is that Jacob Fatu carries his own blood, his own legacy within this business, his own family name that means something independent of whatever role Solo assigned him. Jacob Fatu was never going to be anyone's soldier forever, and somewhere along the way, that inevitability became a problem. Solo Sikoa decided he could not simply wait out. Now let's reconstruct exactly what happened after Raw, because the specific choices Solo made in executing this betrayal tell you everything about how deliberate and calculated this moment actually was. Solo did not confront Fatu in the ring. He did not choose a moment with cameras pointed at both of them, with a crowd ready to react and amplify whatever statement he was trying to make. He waited. He is patient when patience serves his purposes. And he found Fatu in a hallway, away from the lights, away from the audience, in exactly the kind of unscripted feeling moment that carries more weight precisely because it does not feel produced for consumption. He came at Fatu hard. This was not a warning shot, not a calculated demonstration designed to send a message while preserving the relationship. This was personal before it was strategic, the kind of aggression that tells you Solo's feelings about Fatu's rising independence had moved well beyond simple political calculation into something more visceral. And after putting Fatu down, Solo did something that transformed a routine backstage confrontation into a moment that will define this entire saga heading into Night of Champions. He reached down, and he took the Ula Fala. Let's sit with the weight of that necklace properly, because in Samoan tradition and within the mythology this storyline has built around it, the Ula Fala is not a prop. It is not decoration. It represents chieftainship. It represents the absolute right to lead, to speak for a family, to be obeyed without question. When Roman Reigns wore it, the entire wrestling world understood exactly what that meant. He was the tribal chief, the head of the table, the man whose word was law. When Solo Sikoa took it from Roman and began his own chapter, that was an act of genuine revolution, a fundamental restructuring of the entire Bloodline's power dynamics. But what Solo just did to Jacob Fatu is layered in an entirely different, arguably more devastating way. By stripping the Ula Fala from Fatu by force, Solo is making a specific, calculated statement that everything Fatu had was only ever on loan. That his power, his standing, his growing connection with the audience, all of it existed at Solo's pleasure and could be revoked the moment Solo decided the debt needed calling in. It is the kind of message that reframes Fatu's entire run not as a genuine ascension but as a temporary loan that has now been called due, with interest, in a dark hallway after the camera stopped rolling. Here is the question that genuinely matters heading into Night of Champions, and it is the question WWE Express has been asking and that Wrestling Stands wants to put to you directly. Can Solo Sikoa actually reclaim authority simply by taking the necklace back? Because the Ula Fala's power has never purely been about physical possession. It has always been about who the audience believes deserves it. Roman wore it and the entire wrestling world felt the weight of that symbol specifically because Roman had built an empire that justified it. Years of dominance, of storytelling, of earning the audience's recognition that he was, in fact, the rightful tribal chief. Jacob Fatu wore it, and you could feel the crowd starting to extend that same recognition toward him, starting to believe that this was the next legitimate chapter of something real. If Solo simply takes it by force, does that make him the rightful holder of that authority? Or does it make him a thief, someone who understands the symbol's power but has not actually earned the legitimacy that symbol is supposed to represent? In wrestling storytelling, that distinction between rightful authority and forced possession is everything. It is the difference between a coronation and a robbery, and the audience, ultimately, will decide which one this was. Think carefully about what this internal collapse does to Solo's faction dynamics heading into Night of Champions in Riyadh. This is a bloodline that is now, undeniably, eating itself alive. Solo cannot walk into that premium live event with genuine confidence when his own former enforcer has become an active enemy. And Jacob Fatu is not a man you want standing on the opposite side of the room from you, let alone the opposite side of a match. This is someone who has spent months dismantling opponents with terrifying efficiency. He now has a deeply personal reason to burn everything Solo has built straight to the ground. And then there is the question that never fully disappears from this saga regardless of how many other threads are unfolding simultaneously. Where is Roman Reigns in all of this? Because Roman has been watching Solo's entire implosion from a distance, presumably with the kind of patient, calculating attention that he has shown throughout every chapter of this conflict. He watched what Solo did to dismantle his original bloodline. He has been waiting, by every reasonable reading of his character, for exactly the right moment to reassert himself. And every mistake Solo makes this significant widens that window a little further. Could Roman find a way to use Jacob Fatu's anger, fresh, personal, and now completely unleashed by Solo's betrayal, as a weapon against the cousin who took everything Roman once built and turned it against him? That is precisely the kind of alliance that would completely reshape the power structure heading toward the rest of the year. A wounded, furious Jacob Fatu, freshly betrayed by the man who built him, finding his way toward Roman Reigns specifically because Roman represents the one figure capable of helping him take back what Solo just stole. That is the kind of storytelling reversal that this entire saga has been quietly building the conditions for. What Solo Sikoa did backstage after Raw was not simply an attack. It was a declaration of war against someone he himself created. And history, in wrestling and well beyond it, is full of stories about creators who became terrified of their own creations and moved too aggressively to contain them. Jacob Fatu is not going to take this lying down. The man who once called Solo his chief is now a man with nothing left to lose and an intensely personal score to settle. And in WWE, there has never been anybody more dangerous than a man with absolutely nothing left to lose. Night of Champions is approaching fast. Solo lit this match himself the moment he reached down and took that Ula Fala, and now the entire bloodline is on fire. Wrestling Stands will be here for every single moment of the fallout. Thanks so much for watching, it genuinely means everything to us here at Wrestling Stands. We'll see you in the next one.